And this is the last part for that chapter 23 on lipids. This is again a summary, and we're going to focus mostly on the membrane of every cell. So be able to identify the membrane lipids, describe their structure and the role they play, general structure of a cell membrane, its chemical composition, and understand the difference between passive transport and active transport, and between simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. So those phospholipids are very important because they are the basic structure of cell membrane. They aggregate in a closed, sheet-like double-leafed structure. We call this the lipid bilayer. So you have two parallel layers of lipids that are oriented so the tails are facing each other. This is here what you have. So you look on the top, the polar head is hydrophilic, the non-polar tail is hydrophobic, and if you look on the middle, the lipid bilayer, you have head, double tail, and head, very close to where we find also with liposome. I'll let you read that property of liposome. So this is very important because this is going to be what we represent by the fluid mosaic model. Membrane is fluid because molecule can move around within it, and is a mosaic because it contains many kind of molecules. You should look at that picture, that diagram, very carefully. You have here on the top the extracellular fluid. Inside is the cytoplasm, so the inside of the cell. You look at here the phospholipid bilayer, and you see many different components. You have protein. Some of them are peripheral, so they are on one side or on the other side. Some of them are going to be integral protein. Some of them have channels. Some of them are going to be working only with active transport. And you need to know that about 20% or more of a membrane consists of protein molecule. I'll let you look at those more carefully. Now, the cell will decide what can come in and can get out. And there are basically two major modes of passage across the membrane. One is called passive, the other one is called active. The basic difference, passive, there is no energy required, and is going to just follow a rule going from a higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. While the active transport is going to actually go most of the time against that gradient, and it will need some energy from ATP. So those are some examples. On the first left, you have simple diffusion. This is where you have a normal molecular motion into areas of lower concentration. If you look at here, on the very far left, simple diffusion. Look at the red dots. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on one side, and you only have one on the inside part of my cell, where everything goes from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. So simple diffusion will let those red molecules move freely towards the inside. Sometimes you need to have a molecule that will be transported. That's what we call a facilitated diffusion. It's still part of a passive transport that doesn't need energy to take place. And on the very far right side, when you move against the gradient of concentration, so look at the very far right side, active transport, you see that you have only 3 goldish molecules on the bottom side of my layer, of my membrane, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the outside. So a simple diffusion will have the tendency to move the molecule from a higher concentration to lower. But I can reverse that at the condition I have energy to make that going the other way around. So that energy comes from the conversion of the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, into ADP, and that's going to change the shape of that, for example, sodium-potassium pump. Very, very important for nerve cells and to keep that what we call the sorry, I had a blink. What we call the making of the resting potential. Property of cell membrane, where they are a fluid-like phospholipid bilayer. They incorporate cholesterol, protein, as well as glycoprotein and glycolipids. Small non-polar molecules can cross by simple diffusion through the lipid bilayer. And those are just the summaries. Look at here, small ions and polar molecules diffuse across the membrane via protein pores. Those are still simple diffusion. They go from a high concentration towards a low concentration. A little bit of larger substances such as glucose and some amino acid cross with the aid of protein, still without energy, so that's what we call facilitated diffusion. That's still a summary. And then sodium and potassium, other substances that maintain concentration gradient across the cell membrane, will need to go against the gradient of concentration, and they will require energy, so that's what we call that the active transport. And that is here just the basic map of that entire chapter.